assistant coach.
Really talented. He was, I got that one dog that was easy up to 2 dogs. And he was telling me that different options like the gas are a lot cheaper than what the other rest of the dogs. So, we got him on that. Because he was fixing them up for about $1,000. He's every guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really, yeah.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Start with pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On the roll call, trustee Howdy Shell.
Present.
Trustee Clark. Here. Trustee Renner. Here. Attorney Schober. Here. Trustee Lysick here. Clerk Ford. Here. Trustee Goodman. Here. Trustee Kahn. Here. Trustee Long. And Mike Timbers is here from. Going to public comments. If there are any public comments, please stand, state your name and address for the record, and try and keep them to 2 minutes or less.
Good evening, Bill Blazer, West 223 South 7412 Douglas Court, representing myself and my husband. Would like to go on record in support of the Plan Commission recommendation to repave Douglas Court.
Thank you.
Good evening, Roger Emily. I'm here with my wife. We are West 223 South 7462 Douglas Court, and we are here to, as the Blazaks, back the Plan Commission's findings and to repave the road, whatever it is we're gonna do.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Janine Iskowski, W223S7413, Douglas Court. And as my neighbors have mentioned, I'm here to back the Plan Commission recommendation for repaving of Douglas Court. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move along to staff reports. 3A, Fire Department monthly report. Chief?
We had 16 calls for the month, bringing the total to 138. Our members went out and did fire prevention yesterday at Grace Lutheran and St. Joseph Schools. Students were talking about fire prevention and giving a tour of our trucks we had there. Annual pump testing was completed 2 weeks ago. 1163, 61, and 91 passed, but we would have to have 2 rear valves repacked on both 1163 and 61, and that will be taken care of at a later date. While testing, they found a bearing on 1161 that was in the process of failing. 1161 was taken to EM Towing, and that issue has been rectified. At the request of DPW, we assisted in clearing out a culvert in the Windwalker subdivision with 1163. We have seen an increase in COVID positive cases over the last month. All preventative measures are still in place for all our staff, and our current supplies are still in good shape. We are in the planning stages of our annual ice fishing jamboree. Our date we have set is January 15th, 2022. This is Fire Prevention Week. We encourage all residents and businesses to check out their smoke and CO detectors. Also, we ask that everyone have a safe meeting place outside the residence in the event of a fire. We are currently advertising for more staff. Anyone who is interested in joining the fire department is encouraged to contact us and fill out an application. Any questions?
Chief, the two mutual aid calls were there, was those EMS, fire, or combination of both?
The mutual aid calls, I believe, were both fire last month.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Item 3B, Library Monthly Report. Good evening, Carla.
This last September was probably our quietest month so far this year. We really miss having the kids. We had 1,199 people visit us, moved 1,100 items. We noticed that there's about an 8% increase on overdrive, which I don't report on here. I could start doing that, but that adds a lot to our circulation. We finished our RFID tagging project, which to us is a really big deal. It was a lot of man hours, and now we are one of the 18 libraries out of 24 that have all of our items tagged. We met, staff and I met, we talked about our summer reading program, did some planning for next year, and I'm in contact now with the Big Bend librarian. Our library system is reaching out so that we can join some of our resources with the public schools. And I also want to thank anyone here that offered me advice or comments on our website. I learned that you have to ask the right questions, because I asked a question from our library system if they could help me design a new website, and that was the wrong thing to say. And they said, no, we don't do that. And so I took off on that. What I needed to find out from them is could they help me rework what we already had in place with their support. And when I asked the right question, they said, oh, sure. And she helped me set up a template, and I accidentally pushed submit. And I had a brand new website within 3 hours. But it had a blank homepage, so that was a really interesting day. But it's working well now, and I'm learning. Also, we are going to start a weeding project, which means we go through our old items and delete them. And we have a process that we do that through. We don't just randomly take books and throw them away. And I had staff evaluations, I had my own evaluation, I received my public library certification for 5 years. And our Waukesha County committee is reviewing their standards for public libraries. I don't know yet what that will mean for us. It might mean some changes, how that would financially affect us. Everything's up in the air right now. So on that note, I'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Item 3C, Police Department Monthly Report. Chief?
I'm just gonna do it from here so I don't stand in front of people. One theft, one fraud, one drug related, one disorderly conduct, one missing person, one adult arrest, 75 traffic stops with 67 citations issued, 2 non-traffic citations, which are both drug related, 373 calls for service, 135 business checks, house checks, extra patrols, 6 vehicle accidents, responded with the fire department on 10 of their calls. The next 2 pages there you can read while I'm doing the empty back part, and we'll give any questions. 5 hours and 17 minutes assisting other agencies, all in the Village of Vernon. For the court, September had 75 initial appearances, and the Village of Waukesha had 12 initial appearances. The numbers for state debt collection are at the bottom there. The totals are in, I don't know if you're in color or not, I'm not sure. Is at the bottom there. 23, almost 24 for Big Bend and 35 for town of or Village of Waukesha. Questions, comments, concerns, gripes, requests? None of the above?
Sure.
Always here for you. Also, just so you know, we've talked about this in the past, and the salvage vehicle inspection is back up and running, effective yesterday, so that's a bonus for the village. So if you know any car dealer, people that need title, salvage titles, retitle, send them our way.
Thanks, Chief. Item 3D, President's Report. Just an update, we had passed a resolution in 2019. Trick or treat is and always will be October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. So just a reminder that that's coming up at the end of the month. Item 3E, Public Works Department monthly report.
Good evening.
Good evening, Eric.
No snowstorms on the 31st.
Please.
So a couple of things here. The pier is going to be coming out middle of this month, so we won't be pulling any more weeds off of that. We cleared all the American flags off of Clark, Edgewood, and Milwaukee, so those are gone. On the 14th, unfortunately, this last month, we took over the Cajun site, and I contacted the contractor. Everything there has been matted and seeded. I was there this morning, did another inspection, and grass is growing. The rain we got last night should help immensely. We have a couple of nice warm days coming up, so we should get a lot of growth. Took down a bunch of trees over on Cherry Street. Trustee very long gave us a heads up on some stuff in the tree. We were able to get most of that down. We completed a artesian well drain system over on Sherman at Robert Way. And I want to thank Brooks Tractor. They brought out a Mini X as a demo. We were tied up a few other things. We got on the machine late, but we were able to get that job done. We covered up all the graves and stuff that we've had up at the cemetery that were open. Just to give you an idea, I sold 8 plots this month, or in the month of September. I had 3 burials. I had down here 5 monument stakings, but if you count what just came in, we've done 13 monument stakings in the last 2 days. The deadline for them is the 15th of November to get it in before the frost. So they're coming on heavy. Had a windstorm since we picked up some of that stuff. We completed our last dumpster of the season here. I've been working with both engineers on different projects. We're going to be converting over everything inside the building here to LED lightings. We're going to do it in steps, so we're not going to do it all at once. We built the leaf bin. We had a couple hours one day, and we were able to get that all done. And we took all our electronics to John's Recycling. That program has really picked up. I don't know, Lana, you've taken the money, are we pretty much way ahead of where we were last year?
I don't know where we were at last year.
That's right, you weren't here last year, that's right. So we cut all the stuff through the state property, cemetery, and then Jacoby West. Questions?
So,
All right, thank you.
thank you, Eric. 3F, report from professional services.
Well, we covered on the agenda, so nothing additional.
Very good. Thank you. Item 4A, minutes.
Motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes for September 2nd.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
On item 7, new business, on L, it's the discussion about Ripple Wood East. Makes references to 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, and 1.25 inch, but it doesn't necessarily say what those what it corresponds to. And just for clarification, we should probably add in there that that's the size of the
Traffic bond.
It's traffic bond.
yeah, the
Traffic bond and or crushed concrete.
Motion to pass the minutes with that amendment.
I'll second
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5A, discussion and approval of bills. Discussion, consideration, and approval of bills in the amount of $143,022.06. Excuse me. And a transfer to LGIP for $76,669.72, dated 9/15/2021.
Motion to pay the bills in that amount with a transfer to LGIP as well.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 5B, discussion, consideration, and approval of bills in the amount of $2,400.94, dated 9/23/2021.
Motion to pay the $2,494.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5C, discussion, consideration, and approval of bills in the amount of $64,010.54, dated October 7th, 2021. Yeah.
Motion to pay the bills in that amount.
I'll second
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, old business. A, discussion, consideration, and possible action on emergency management plan for the village of Big Bend. Update.
We have a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 19th to discuss that.
Warren, if I could.
Yes, sir.
I did talk to the generator company today. We are 30 to 32 weeks out.
Really?
Half a year.
Does it still move forward on it?
It is
Right.
what it is.
You ordered it, or?
Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, the other company's 42 weeks.
And we made it 90 years without one. We'll make it another 32 weeks.
This was the one that we wanted?
Yes.
Thanks, Eric. And thank you, Tony. Item 6B, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding occasion fill site in general, as well as possibly using your surety bond to bring the site into compliance. Eric, you touched on it briefly before.
So site was not in compliance. Things were going good, things were not going good. At a certain point, I decided to pull the trigger and say, basically, we're not getting where we need to be. And I shut the site down, contacted a landscape contractor that was available, and I believe he started on the 20th. Everything was completed in about 5 days. I did have the lady from the DNR meet me out there, she went through it. Also, I believe in your packet, you should have the correspondence between me and the DNR regarding that. It has, when I went and checked it this morning, we've got good growth. Things are coming along well. Again, the rain we had last night, it should help significantly.
When's your next inspection?
I believe we're doing one next week, Friday.
Does Brooke have to come back out to relook at it?
Pardon me?
Is Brooke coming back out to relook at it?
She was there, we'll contact her, see. We want to make sure we're pretty much at the goal zone there and make sure that we're good. But a lot of grass coming up now.
Good. No action. Thanks, Eric. Item 6C, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the Motorola radios exchange program. Jamie?
This has been a project that I've been working on for quite some time. Back in July, and I'll just kind of, the Waukesha County Fire Chiefs Association had been meeting with Motorola in regards to a radio upgrade due to the fact that Motorola is not certifying these, basically our radios anymore. Not all of our radios, just certain ones, and that happens to be the APX 7000 XEs and the APX 6000 XE models. Many users in agencies in Waukesha and Milwaukee counties purchased APX series portable subscriber radios on a special contract pricing offered as part of an overall OASIS system procurement agreement. Many of these radios, as I mentioned, the 7000s, 6000s, also some other non-XE model ordered specifically with an FM battery option were shipped from the factory and with an intrinsically safe rating. And what that means is that these, in a fire situation, these radios would not fail. If they did, Motorola would be responsible for them. This FM was set to expire several years ago, and Motorola, along with other radio manufacturers, transitioned the manufacturing from an IS radio rating in accordance with test protocols as defined by Underwriters Laboratories, and moved it from the IS rating to Underwriters Laboratories, or UL rating. Motorola stopped offering the IS radio certified to the FM standards at the end of 2015. Prior to that time, information circulated by Motorola indicated that repairs to FM certified radios could continue to be made by FM audited repair facilities, meaning more or less you can't take it to Bob's repair shop, you have to get it right to Motorola. Also, they would procure and have available to us FM certified batteries, which would continue available for purchase. As of January 1st, 2021, Motorola is no longer able to certify or repair radios to the FM standard. This means that any FM certified radio requiring repair in 21 and beyond will no longer be certified to any IS standard after that repair. In addition, Motorola is no longer offering FM batteries for sale. Since certification testing for the IS intrinsically safe equipment is conducted on complete radio and battery systems as packaged, this means that once the current supply of FM batteries is depleted, radios originally certified by FM will have to be used with non-FM Motorola batteries or with other non-type of FM Motorola batteries, both which invalidly make them not safe within a fire situation. Due to the timing of the subscribers' purchases, most units delivered prior to the end of 2015, many OASIS system users are now in a unique, challenging position with their entire fleet's radios being ended prematurely, their end-of-life status. As I had mentioned at our meeting back in July, we weren't anticipating any changes to the radios for quite some time. What we are looking at Motorola doing, as the chiefs had met, at first they were looking at replacing all the radios, but all the radios did not have to be replaced. I've gone through all the radios here in the village, including DPW, the police department as well, and it comes down to, I believe last month I had reported 29 radios. It's actually just 15 radios that we're currently looking at. These are the radios here. These are the APX 6000 XE radios. These are heavier duty model that we have in the fire trucks that are brought into fires and other type scenes that makes them intrinsically safe and basically certified by Motorola. What Motorola currently is offering to us is in a replacement. They're willing to exchange these radios out completely. The only catch to it is that we would have to purchase 2 batteries along with it. Looking at the pricing of the 15 radio, looking at the pricing of a brand new APX 8000 radio, what we would get in return, those are listing right now at $8,900 a piece. So to replace them on our own would be quite a substantial hit, well over $100,000 for us to do that. In return, as I said, what Motorola is doing, because a lot of the stuff we have are chargers, also our microphones and other things that go with the radios, will still work, no problem whatsoever in regards to the chargers, as well as radio holders and microphones. So all we are looking to do then would be to replace the current radios with the current program. We would have to purchase 2 batteries per radio, which would be a total of 30 batteries, and then have the programming done for all 15 radios. The cost right now, what we are looking at is approximately a little over $4,900 to do this. Last month I talked with finance and we were looking at anywhere between $9,000 to $10,000 to do this. So pretty much we've looked at, after doing some further investigating, looking at half the price of what we were looking at. We would be able to, as I've talked with the chiefs, we'd be able to do this within budget. Especially too, we'd be able to use our FAP funds, our grant that we have, get on a yearly basis. We currently have almost $4,000 in that account, and then our communication budget has about $2,000 left in our current budget in regards to doing this. So what we're looking to do would be to move forward with this continue to move forward with this project. Waukesha County now has taken over the project from the Waukesha County Chiefs Association, and they are now basically doing the negotiations for us in order to get the best prices for the batteries, as well as get the best prices for programming. So
So the 4,900 includes the 30 battery price plus the 15 programming?
correct. Departments that have a lot of these radios. For us, the police department, these are the APX 6000s, not the XEs. These are fine for us. Same thing with the police department's radios as well. They're the same style police department carries. Eric's is a little bit, is a step down, which is a APX 4000 radio that he uses for DPW. So we would not have to touch any of those radios at all. It's just the 15 radios that we currently have in the trucks that would have to be changed over.
Those are portables in the trucks?
Yes, portable radios only.
Do they come with chargers?
No, they don't come with chargers. Our current chargers that we have will be just fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Everything, including the microphones, which come right off, the microphones we can use, the chargers and everything else with that. So it's just the portable radio.
So it's not Apple that just changes out its charging devices every time?
Yeah, yeah, it's not Apple. So, we're hoping to get this completed. Motorola wants to get it completed by the end of the year, but there's no guarantee at this point that it will, just due to the fact that there's still negotiations going on. There's still some meetings coming up with Motorola that the county's still working on at this point.
Nice work. Thank you. I don't think we need any action if you're doing it within budget. It's within budget.
Yeah, as long as, yeah. I'm hoping it'll pass up until next year, because right now we'll be getting another FAP fund grant, and it's gonna be about another $4,000, so that'll take care of everything. But
Sure.
I needed to bring the board up to date on everything in regards to where we are with what's going on with this and that.
No, we
Our
appreciate
number of radios has decreased, which is good.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Moving on, item 7, new business. A, discussion, consideration, and possible action on the rural home ATC agreement / expansion. Eric, please fill us in.
So, back when I inherited the cemetery back in 2014, I knew at some point we needed to expand. We have the area to expand. I think John can help me out with this a little bit too. ATC has high power lines that go over. So we went to ATC, and at first it was absolutely nothing's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to use that property. Well, that whole thing as it cuts through the cemetery takes off a third of the cemetery. That's a huge, huge chunk. Then we went back and said, okay, we will install a road from County L to the tower. And after that, this thing kind of fell apart. Not a whole lot was going on. People weren't gonna give us anything. We need to start that back up again, because I'm down to just over 200 plots. And I don't have any place else to put them until we get this thing settled.
So what do you need from us?
I need us, as I think John and Mike were working on this, we need to restart this fire again and get things moving. I was hoping that I would have had this stuff in Chuck over here, but we flew a drone over that, and the power lines come down over the Jacoby West section, and then they hang to the northeast. So you'll have, I think you have a total of about 9.5 acres there. You'll have about 4. that does not give you a lot of expansion. Their deal was there's gonna be headstones in the way. So if we would make that, the Jacoby West section, flat stones only, it'd be fine. And then they said, well, if we have to get a bucket truck in there, there's nobody going up on those things in a bucket truck that's gonna hook lines together. That's been their contention, that's not gonna happen. They work tower to tower with a big winch in the back of a bulldozer or a truck, and they pull them. So some of their stuff, I get where they're coming from, but this may be groundbreaking in Wisconsin here, but we need to do something, otherwise we're gonna be, this thing will probably have less than a 50-year length as far as the village can control it for 50 years, and it's gonna go completely full. You're gonna lose, I think, it was 500 to 600 just in the west section, not including the section that goes down towards the Fox River. Cemeteries in Milwaukee are getting full. That's why people are moving out here. And if it's gonna be that small, that's fine, but you need to have some place, at least I do, think we need to expand. It's our property, we should. I know it's been met with some resistance from the power company, but there's some different people there now, and I think it's time that we go after this and see where we can get.
I think we need to defer to John because, you know, you guys looked at this previously, right?
Well, I think what had happened is the power company objected, and then the question is, what do we do next? You know, do we sue them? Do we?
Well, it's their easement, they bought and paid for it, correct? So, to me, it's like, what are the odds to even beat the power company to get this?
Well,
And may not even get it.
yeah, what happens is, and I think you're raising a good point, because it's really how complicated this might be, how expensive it might be to potentially butt heads and, you know, try to get a resolution. I don't see any problem with approaching them and seeing if something could be worked out informally that they could live with. But I think one of the confusing things is the village actually owns the land that the easement's on, but this easement is a right-of-way over that land. And so we can't interfere with their use of it. So the question is putting, you know, plots underneath it, interfering with their use of it. Well, you know, that's subjective based on, do they need equipment in there? Do they need whatever? Theoretically, if it didn't interfere with anything, we could still potentially do it. I mean, we could maybe do a garden, we could maybe do things that wouldn't interfere with things that we'd have a right to do. But the gray area is, if they're saying we object because we envision a situation where it's gonna interfere with what we wanna do with the easement, then you gotta resolve that either by negotiation or courts or whatever. So I think informally approaching them, I don't see there'd be a problem if
I think that's a good idea to contact them, approach them, and see what we can work out, yeah.
Yeah, if there's a change of position on their part, and at least try to get some additional space worked out. But, yeah, I mean, as an attorney, we don't, you know, suggest going to, you know, litigation right away, and that I think reached the point of where I don't think there was the will with the board to, you know, confront them. I think it just sort of slowly kind of faded off, and now we recognize, you know, a need again so.
Oh, yeah, I think trying to fight it in court, I mean, they could stretch this out for years, and their pockets are a lot deeper than ours.
I think if we could go to them with a proposal that we put like a gravel road or whatever kind of road underneath the lines so that they can get their equipment in and out and work on the lines that are ahead, and there's no burials underneath it, directly underneath it, then maybe we would have some ability to have resolution with this. But I think that would be up to you, like putting even a rough drawing together.
We've got it all surveyed,
So
so we got it that far, but we haven't been able to get this thing with them. I mean, they don't, I think they have a 75 foot easement in there, and that's fine, but they could narrow that up a little bit. We'll definitely put the road in for them, that's not an issue. The issue is, these are dead people, okay? And there's other places that don't have that high of power lines coming over them, and they have it there. It's all about maintenance, that they can do maintenance. Those towers have been there for over 85 years. They just painted them. I don't think they're gonna be tipping over or blowing over, but I think there's something we need to work with these people so that we can use that property. If not, then I don't think we should cut it anymore, or do anything with it anymore. It's just that we have a cemetery that's gonna be half of its volume.
On the top side,
Pardon me?
on the top side.
Well, I wouldn't wanna be on the bottom side. No, I'm just, what I'm saying
What's
is,
the plan for the bottom side?
well, that's gonna be, right now it's farmed. So what we'll do is come in with a dozer and doze off that edge there that's there, you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Doze that in, put some fill in there, but you're still gonna go down, you're still gonna lose half of that, at least a good a third to a half of that cemetery, the way those lines are.
If we start working our way down the hill though, how many burial sites could we get down there? Probably as many as we have on the top side, I would think.
Well, the problem is the Jacoby West, which is there now, we already put a culvert in and we have all that stuff done. I don't wanna go down the hill first. Cause that's bringing in a lot of fill.
Well, at some point, we're gonna have to, someday.
We will, but we don't have enough in the kitty to do that right now.
But, you know, and as we go down the hill, we can put up some kind of wall there, and even have some type of burial above ground, you know, like for urns and different things like that.
I know that's been talked about, but I'll be honest with you. You're out in a rural country. I would rather have it up on top. We're gonna have problems with drifting snow down there because the wind on that hill is fantastic sometimes. I mean, it may not, you may not need a jacket out some days, but other days up there, it's very cold. So
Right.
snow is gonna be an issue there. But I would like to, you go to the west where you know we have solid ground, the ground on the bottom's been farmed. You're not gonna be driving on that in a year. It's gonna have to take a while to settle and get grass seed and everything else in there.
Understand that, but I think we need to look at the long term of what we can do down there along with moving west to try to work up some kind of deal with that, so how do we approach this? Is this something that you would write a letter to him?
We need a motion to have Eric work with the attorney,
Yeah, well,
see if we can come to a resolution with ATC.
yeah, I think you open the channels again and just see who their liaison is, who you can talk to and start with that. I mean,
Is that something you were doing, was talking to him? Or who was?
I brought it to the board brought it to John and Mike, and they were progressing with it. And there were some issues with it, you know, they were all steadfast against it. But, and that was probably a good 6 years ago. We're getting short on burial stuff. I'd rather work off the high ground first than try to make the low ground work.
I'll make a couple of comments. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, but just a couple of things that we're going to have to really consider and have solutions to, because I'm afraid that ATC will come back with this. Looking at it from a utility and infrastructure standpoint, they are eventually going to have to replace those towers. We can look at what the utilities had to do with the towers that ran east and west through the village, and other large lines such as what's over there. Eventually, if they have to replace those towers, they're going to take up a lot of real estate on that 75-foot of right-of-way leading from the road, and probably having to get another access road, putting down smut mats to get their heavy equipment in, and basically having to take up quite a bit of room to be able to do that. Mostly, if you look at it, it's going to destroy most everything that's within that right-of-way on the surface. If you have burial plots that are now occupied, those burial sites can't be removed, and certainly you can't even really do anything with the headstones or anything on the surface, let alone anything under the surface. We've had to face this before with the company that I work for, that you know, it's a very precarious situation where we have to move through a cemetery to get infrastructure in place. So I can easily see that that's going to be something that we're going to have to get a solution to surmount that particular argument if we're wanting to try to develop and meet that line. We need to make sure that we have our ducks in a row so that we have some of these answers to say, well, maybe you can come in through this angle to get down to these towers, or whatever that might be. If there's other access points that, to be able to come through Waukesha County-owned land around the river or something. That's my biggest point. That's what I can foresee as the main stumbling block that ATC would have with us trying to develop underneath the line.
Well, they do have an access cul-de-sac coming off the Vernon subdivision, right?
Right. They have that, you can come on the west driveway, you could come right down to the tower, you can come in the far west driveway and come right down to the tower, or you can come off of the court in the village of Vernon. There's one tower that they would have to service. And if they do service any of those or want to take them down, all the new towers are going to our mono towers. I'm not saying this is gonna be get it fixed by next Saturday afternoon, but we need to get at least some progress on this so that we can, see where we're gonna be in 3 years.
Well, maybe you start that conversation and at the same time start looking at costs and what the project would entail to go down the hill, so that we can explore both options. Because again, if we run into a bunch of walls, whether it's related to the concerns of the power lines and the future of them, or it's, the easement, them not wanting to move, then at least we know what our other option is, instead of coming back to the table to talk, hey, what's plan B?
So, do we need a motion?
I think so.
No?
I
You can handle
think
it?
the consensus is to start the ball rolling, and you can contact us too,
Okay.
if you see a role for us to.
All right, thank you. Item 7B, review, discussion, and possible approval of the development agreement and stormwater management agreement for Ripplebrook East subdivision. The applicant/property owner is Stephen Stiza. The site located south off of Henneberry Avenue, just east of Ripplebrook West subdivision, is zoned R2 residential district with CUG for PUD. The entire conditional use grant.
Warren,
Yes, sir.
could you do the stormwater management agreement first, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Trying to find it in my packet here.
Yeah, the 100 pages on the side. So, just pass some quotes, renderings and quotes.
Thirty-seven pages. Only 37 pages too.
I think it's 170.
Appendix 2, well,
Since you guys on planning have gone through all this, can you just kind of go through this for us?
planning recommended approval of this, correct? Tony?
Yes, that is correct.
the developer's agreement had some changes to it. So let's peel this one off the top. We can approve them separately, right?
Yeah, it's fair. Right.
Is there anything you want to bring to our attention on this?
Talking specifically about the stormwater,
Yes.
you guys reviewed, everything looked,
We don't have anything, so just for the stormwater now. Naomi has reviewed all this stormwater. And we're satisfied. Developers agreement, that's separate.
Correct.
And we're not gonna have issues like we've had with other developments in regards to stormwater.
I wouldn't think so.
Is there anything that dictates when it gets put in?
There is in the developer's agreement. We're not to the developer's agreement yet, but it is in section 1C. Which is section I2C. You include the notes from planning on this, do you? It's okay. Just asking. Anybody else have any questions?
And we're just doing the stormwater now?
Just the stormwater first.
So since the planning commission recommends this, I'll make a motion to approve this.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the developer's agreement. You have a redlined copy in here with all the planners' changes and why. I should say planner, attorney, and engineer. They collaborated.
This contains all those suggested changes in here in the commented sections?
Correct. So, did your staff have any rebuttals to the proposed changes?
I sent you the new copy today, and I'm sure that regardless of what you guys do tonight, our attorneys will probably be talking to each other to fine tune it. Yeah.
If we were inclined to move forward, I would suggest that whatever the final version is, because we got all the red line stuff right now, we should ultimately have the official sign a clean copy. So I think if we were to even recommend approval tonight, that it would be subject to review to make sure everything is in the way that we understand it sitting there. And that could be reviewed by staff, which could include us or
Because, I mean, I really do want to protect my rights under chapter 236.13. And I think our two attorneys need to discuss that so that they both understand what the rights are. And as well, also we're kind of butting heads on the cost estimate where I've actually hard costs, bid costs, but unfortunately, Kapoor, not you, shut down communication with me, so we have not been able to discuss it, and it's kind of disappointing, but it's unfortunate.
I don't understand that comment. We're.
Well, when I email and call Brian, he just says he doesn't respond.
Brian?
Yeah.
Who's Brian?
I'm sorry, Greg. I apologize.
Aren't you dealing with Naomi?
Well, she passed it off to Greg.
Well, as far as,
I mean, you won't answer my emails and phone calls and says, oh, they'll only talk to me once a year, and it's unfortunate,
well.
Because he's like double charging me for a couple of things that I wanted to point out to him, and you won't let me point it out to him. About 3 weeks ago, I was put in kind of a communication blackout, so.
I don't know anything about that. The only thing I know is that we submitted the developers agreement, letter of credit, I should say, portion of that, and.
That's the engineer's cost estimate. Yeah.
Right, and we hadn't heard back from, there was some discussion about a particular item,
I think I even talked to your boss about it, Mr. Killers.
That's me.
No, another gentleman, I'm sorry. So are you out of the Milwaukee office?
No.
No, he was out of the Milwaukee office.
Why would, okay, oh, that's neither here nor there.
Right. Anyways, we haven't resolved it, let's put it that way.
Well, from my understanding, is it's not true that the letter of credit was sent to you with the cost and the itemized breakdown, and there was no response back?
I emailed Greg and called him on the phone, and he wouldn't call me back. What else? What more can I say?
You're telling me that you replied to his email that he sent?
Yeah. I can forward you his email.
I would appreciate that, because it's
Okay.
not the story that I have.
Okay.
If there's still stuff up in the air and chances that there's gonna be changes to this, is this even something they can take action on tonight?
I suppose it depends on how major the changes would be.
But we don't know what those are.
Right.
So that's why it's kinda hard to take that leap.
I personally don't feel comfortable in moving forward with it tonight until we have some of the more details.
I'm not sure what the differences are. I wasn't sure if it was just the language being considered and making sure it was clear, or whether there's some substantive changes, but.
For the letter of credit?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry.
Well, I meant for the developers agreement itself, but then, what Mr. Spicer says, that there's some issue as to chapter 236 of the statutes, and whether his rights are being impaired or impacted in the agreement that should try to be resolved. I would think that I want to know the answer is to that. So maybe the attorneys need to talk. Mike Show has been the one who's been reviewing all this so far.
Would it be through your brother Mike or you?
Mike.
Mr. Stiza, if we table this tonight, is that going to impact your scheduling for what you need to do?
I already shut the job down. It's not happening this fall. It won't be till next spring.
I noticed that there was soil that had been disturbed out there.
That is correct. It was by accident, guys.
Okay.
And we will be seeding it.
Okay.
I was out there today. It's dry as a bone, actually. So.
I concur with that.
And I, as soon as I found out, I told Naomi. I wasn't aware of it at all.
No, that's,
It was a miscommunication.
That's what we understand. It was a mistake, and he immediately told us and immediately shut it down. So.
I think given that status now, it's probably best to have the details ironed out
Right.
and get all this covered rather than do some sort of conditional approval.
I agree. I'll make a motion to table that piece of it, the development agreement.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7C, review, discussion, and possible action to amend the developer's agreement as to the paving specifications and schedule for paving at the Douglas Court development located at Douglas Court. Village staff initiated this request owing to the condition of required public improvements completed to date by the developer. The property is zoned R2 residential district. Planning Commission recommended to the village board was to mill off all of the asphalt, to do testing and evaluate the road base contents and condition, repair road base if and as needed, and then asphalt according to the terms of the existing developer's agreement. In your packet, you have information from Procure based on what exactly is on the road right now. There's 3.5 inches of asphalt on the road. Village ordinance and a plan called for 4.
Well, what happened here? Was this, I mean, wasn't the base approved previously?
So, Jeff, what it kind of boils down to is with 3.5 inches of asphalt, and both layers were put on at the same time, same date, right on top of each other. If there's more asphalt that's if we accept it as is, then the village takes responsibility for probably less than life on the asphalt as it is, because the standards were not followed. The next idea would be to simply put another 1/2 inch on top of that 3.5 inch and bring it up to grade, or up to the 4 inches, but it's going to take it past grade. So everybody that lives on the properties that have developed their driveways and their landscaping and everything else, then there's going to basically be a 1/2 inch gap between the roadway and coming off onto the property. So the only way that it can be made right so that we're given the ability to have a product that's expected to have the normalcy of life expectancy would be to mill not only the 3.5 inches that's on there, but also to take off a 1/2 inch of the underlayment and then pave 4 inches total. And while that asphalt is off, just check to make sure that the base is also correct.
Have there been any borings down in through there to see what's there now?
For the base?
Yeah.
No.
Or for the asphalt?
For the asphalt, yes. They
And it's
have-
in every area?
Well, there's not borings. They have documents from Payne and Dolan that performed the work that state that they did a 2-inch binder and 1.5 inch surface, making a total of 3.5 inches, and both lifts were paved simultaneously on the same day. The statutes state that it's supposed to be 1 year in between the two. And that's to give time for the binder to basically cure, harden, and then be able to put on the finish, top surface.
And so the driveways are all done out to the blacktop?
That is correct.
Mike, did you get any kind of response from Payne and Dolan related to why they executed that way when the ordinance was set?
I called Payne and Dolan and had been reluctant to get back to me. She did get back to me one day and said they could fix it by putting another inch on, not a 1/2 inch. Putting another inch on and then milling out by the driveways. They said normally the driveways are not butted up against the road. They're usually held back 10 feet or up to the culvert at least. But they could mill out by the driveways and make it right with 1 inch. Now, she was supposed to get back to me again, and she hasn't, so I'm waiting for Payne and Dolan. Why they didn't make it to 4 inch? They were told they were supposed to make it to the village specification, and apparently they didn't. So they're looking for a fix, and the fix that she mentioned was that they could put another inch over it and not have a hump by the driveways by milling it down or milling the concrete down, which is not normally brought out all the way to the road. So they do have a fix that will hold up, but they haven't got back to me again on what they were gonna do. They were instructed to make it to code, and apparently they didn't. So they're kind of chewing what they're gonna do with it.
Jeff, just for your information too, they did this early, so there was no oversight by the village because the village was unaware that it was taking place. They did it on a Friday and it was not scheduled to take place until the following Monday.
I'm totally with you on making sure the road is up to specs, totally, before we accept it. I hate to see the developer have to take and mill off everything that's there.
Well, I also hate to see that the residents are going to have to take responsibility if something fails into the future for anything that comes up to and butted against their concrete and the rest of their property.
Correct.
That means if they're going to mill down, thin it out basically to get to their driveways, then that's going to be the first thing that fails. Most likely that's going to be then between the village and the residents trying to figure out who's going to bear the cost to repair that.
Well, obviously, it's probably gonna be us, because as we would take and redo that road, we'd be the ones that would match up that blacktop on the road when we redid it, to take and make sure it works up to the driveway.
I agree, but I would surmise that that's the way that it would go out, but I don't think that that's going to meet the life expectancy of what it should.
We've got Mike Timbers here, he's a road expert from Kapoor.
Yeah.
What would you weigh as our options between, as the planning commission recommended, the full mill off and resurfacing versus milling off the finished course, you know, the top 1.5 inches, and replacing that with 2, or what's the downside of putting 1 inch on the top too? That's an option I wasn't even aware was being thrown around.
Yeah, that's a bit thin, and I think Tony mentioned the issue with the driveway connections.
Yeah, you're gonna be paper thin.
You get 3.5 at the driveways to match the driveways. I think one recommendation would certainly, I don't know if it's meeting in the middle necessarily, it's more of another option to me. Mill 1.5 inches, and pave 2 inches. That still requires you to thin out at the driveways, so you have 3.5 at the driveways, like Tony mentioned. The other option to do, you could do the same exact thing, mill out 1.5 inches on the entire surface. Take some of the driveways, 5 feet, 3 feet, whatever it takes to get 1/2 inch of slope to match in nicely with the driveways. Certainly that could work very, very well. I realize that the homeowners have paid to put their driveways out to the edge of the road, but that's certainly a solution that would definitely be a lot less than removing the full surface, which I personally don't believe that the whole surface has to be removed unless you don't want to touch the driveways, and it's not 4 inches total. So to me, the fix would be 1.5 inches. Remove part of the driveways, 3 feet, 5 feet, make sure they put a wet joint or something that looks nice, replace in kind or replace with asphalt. That's really neither here nor there for me to decide. But that would certainly give you 4 inches total on the entire surface. From what we understand, what we're told about the thickness of the base underneath was more than the spec calls for. So from what I am understanding from the village and Nolan and the developer. With that being said, there was a proof roll prior to paving and it passed, which is a big key part of the construction process to make sure the base underneath the roadway is sufficient to hold your roadway. So, yeah, I mean, seems to me that everything, if 4 inches is what you desire, that there's really 2 options: remove it all or remove 1.5 inches. Take a small part of each driveway. If there's a middle ground, if you want to say it's a middle ground, to me it's more of another option. It's not really a middle ground to me, because I think both options are a good fit for your roadway for a long term.
I don't even know if it's an option to take part of some of the driveways, because there's a ditch right there with culverts.
Well, you remove the driveway and put it back in. I guess I don't understand the question.
Usually when we repave, we'll come off in the driveway, we'll cut anywhere from 3 to 5 feet. The driveway from the culvert out to the road is actually owned by the village. That's in our right of way. If they pave out to that, that's fine, or concrete out to it, but we own it, they're on it.
There's not much space between the actual roadway and the start of that ditch leading.
There's not. The issue, and I talked to Mike about this today, if you build a house and the drywall's a little crooked, I don't think you knock the whole house down. I would have an issue with taking off the complete 4 inches of asphalt that's got a really good base underneath it. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can come back in the driveways. If you don't cut out the driveways and they try to squeeze it in, there's gonna be a little hollow spot there between the driveway and the asphalt, and it's gonna dish, and in the winter you're gonna have ice, or in the summer you're gonna have rain. But I did the proof roll on that road. That road is very solid. There's some issues with the asphalt, yes, but again, I don't think you knock the whole house down just because the wall's bad. I mean, there are other options there. I had talked to Mike about this, and cutting back in the driveways is never a popular thing, but on when Mr. Stiza did Ribblebrook West, that's what we ended up doing. You were there, Mike, when we marked them all and they cut them. It's something that has to be done. It's what do you want? But I don't think pulling a full 4 inches out and starting on that, in my opinion, is not something I'd want to do.
But as a homeowner that's just recently put in a driveway, I would really peeled for.
You know what? So what I
my
would do,
driveway
but here's the
ripped
deal,
out.
anything that comes out past that is in the village right away. That's why there's a 33.
So then are we as a village taking and resurfacing that area every year for them that you have to do with asphalt?
No.
Then they put in concrete for a reason. I put in concrete because I'm not gonna maintain the asphalt.
Right, but again, I went through this with, and as Warren will tell you, went through this with an individual down on Ripplebrook that's in our right of way, 33 feet from the center of the roadway, the village owns.
But you want the homeowners to maintain the maintenance of it. They
We own
put
it.
in what they wanted for maintenance.
So yes, it's doesn't sound like it's a good deal, but we own it, you maintain it. Same thing with the ditch line and stuff. We
That's-
own that, you maintain it.
Right, and they maintained it by putting in concrete.
Right, but there's no way you can get,
There's not one asphalt driveway in that neighborhood. I walk it every morning
where?
in Douglas Court. I walk it every morning. There's not one.
I understand that, but what we
There's
do
one
is
driveway not done.
you cut back. It's normal business, normal, ask Mike, he's done it with me. Normally, you go in and you cut back on that, so you can make the transition from the asphalt to the driveway. So you don't end up with a small spot there. You don't end up with a thin spot. It's not popular, it's not.
But then we're responsible for the upkeep of the asphalt that you laid in when we put our concrete,
Mhm. Unfortunately.
with your approval.
No, unfortunately, that is the way it goes.
Then I send you a bill every year
You
for
don't
it.
send me a bill, but I'm just saying, that's why there are right-of-ways on the side of the road. We can put our utilities, we can put our signs.
What about if we take, hang on a second, what about if we take and mill out in front of the driveway? We take and, when we come in and we take and fix it, we fix it with concrete, so they've got what they had previously.
That's something for you guys to decide. I'm just throwing out options that
And
there
then they
are.
have the concrete they put in the first place. The developer fixes up the road, But I think it's a lot to say, let's take and redo the whole doggone road.
But why can't you fix it on the asphalt side versus the concrete side?
You can, that's an option, but then you're sacrificing that 4-inch thickness throughout the asphalt side, right? That would be the sacrifice. If you
Well,
choose
what if you
to,
dig down deeper? At the base of the driveway, where the concrete is already laid, you're fixing the asphalt anyways. You dig down deeper there to make your 4 inches and whatever. Fix it in those small chunks.
You compromise the quality of it then.
so you're saying in that situation, you're going past the 1.5 pull, right? If we mill off the 1.5 inch towards the driveway, mill off more than that.
Correct.
You'd have to
It'd be a big
take the
section.
full depth, but
Mhm.
you'd have to go beyond both sides of the driveway
Mhm.
because your mill,
Sure.
you.
Right, but you're not
Maybe
ripping out
you go from-
everything, but you're
Right.
doing part of it. We're making a compromise, right? So instead of ruining the concrete, and like concrete was laid multiple different times, you can tell a little bit in the areas. I wouldn't want someone to come lay new concrete in my driveway. You can tell when someone does it, it's different colored.
Different batches.
Correct. So aesthetically pleasing, these are brand new homes. I think the better option is that we figure out how to do it on the asphalt side. There's a way to do it. Let's think creatively.
I think there is too. How far on each side of the driveway would you have to go?
Like I said, I think 3 to 5 feet would be, all you
3 to 5 feet on each side?
The whole width of the driveway. So the whole width of the driveway, 3 to 5 feet into the driveway.
So he's asking if you were to leave the driveway
Oh, I
as
see.
is
Sorry.
and bring it into the road and handle it on the
Yeah.
asphalt side, would it be similar to 3 to 5 feet approach?
No, I mean, you'd have, I don't know offhand, probably 10 to 15 feet to assure that you have 4 total inches all the way through. One thing that Mayor kind of mentioned just a minute ago about if you do that, now you have a patch under your roadway, under your surface course. So that is subject to reflective cracking where you saw cut that pavement out. So there is that. The other thing I want to just mention, and take it however you want to take it, the maintenance word was put out there a few times. It's really, to me, in my view, an extension of the roadway. So we don't seal coat the roadway every year. I guess I don't see a maintenance portion like you would seal your driveway every year. This is kind of an extension of the roadway, which we don't seal every year, or every 10 years, or even more. Generally, you don't seal the road unless you go to maintenance plan, which.
I see a lot of new subdivisions that, they take and bring the concrete drive out to just about to the road, and it's like 18 inches to 2 feet. And then they take and, that's not correct?
No, you're right. It's all over the board. Some ordinances don't allow you to go all the way to the edge of the road. Some will basically tell you that if you go in the right of way at all, which is, like Eric said, typically 33 feet from the center of the road, all of that would be city-owned, and they don't allow certain materials necessarily. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just stating what I know and what I see. In New Berlin, the road I live on, I have concrete right up to the edge of my road because the road was done beforehand. So I'm totally, I understand.
Yeah, this
The road was located.
We were told the road was done.
The entire block, when they redid the roadway, I did it after that. All the others have a ramp down to their driveway, which I do not agree with at all, but my point being, getting off track. It is a little bit all over the board. It depends on the situation.
Well, how horrible is it gonna be? Because we run into this with a lot of these old developments. Somewhere it got messed up, and now we're just trying to.
Well, that's why I'm asking about the whole stormwater thing. I mean, we have the issue with Badger Meadows that hasn't even been fixed yet.
Right.
And whatever, that's why, with your project, when is it getting put in? Because we had the same issue with this project with Douglas Court where it had to get moved too.
Well, we put this developer through a ton of stuff because, you know, first he had a engineered pond one place, and then he had to come back and he had to put it in another place. And it's not cheap to take and do all these different engineering things, to move things and all that kind of stuff. And I know there's multiple reasons for this, but we gotta knock this stuff off and get it right. It's just, you know, you can go back to Ripplebrook, and I know I'm bouncing around.
We gotta focus on
But what kind of protections are we gonna have in here saying, hey, we're gonna follow up and do this right? You know, and not come back and end up in these kind of things.
We have our codifications, we have the statutes that we need to follow, and unfortunately, in this particular instance, it was not followed correctly.
But that's where we need to make sure that we do follow up.
Right, well, whose feet are you holding to the fire? I mean, we can't do anything with Payne and Dolan because they don't work for us, they work for the developer. If they indeed did not follow the instructions that were on the prints that they were given, and the specs that they were given, I believe that they're liable to fix their wrong at their cost.
You would think so, if they're gonna do it.
Our job is to protect our taxpayers and our residents,
Yeah, ultimately,
and
we need
to work with the developers.
yeah, ultimately, we need to tell them what they need to do to fix it, right? They know what obviously, if they didn't know or didn't follow it.
How horrible is it gonna be if they bring the rest of it up to 4 inches and it's at 3.5 right at the driveway?
And there's a half-inch gap, between the asphalt and the concrete.
No, he's saying
No, he's
that
saying leave it at
you would
3.5.
like slope it down so there wasn't that.
To transition it.
Well, it's a
Transition using the asphalt and not touching the driveway.
As, sorry,
My name's Eric.
Eric pointed out, wintertime,
Yep.
you're gonna have ice sitting there.
Plows will chew
Well,
it
not
up.
if it's mildew up.
Plows won't be able to plow that area because it's gonna be sitting a half-inch
If they
low.
match the road to your driveway, there shouldn't be anything.
It should be sloped. I mean, it depends on how much transition, over what distance, and whether or not it would create a pocket of any sort. That would be on them to engineer it properly so that wouldn't happen, right? Otherwise, it's just a matter of the slow grade down to your driveway. But if they try to do that in like 3 or 4 feet, yeah, sure, you're gonna end up with a pocket, but if they can do that if they're laying down another 2 inches for the most part, and then they drop down to 1.5 inches towards your driveway, they can start that transition further out into the road, you know, to help that slope be more gradual. But again, then we're sacrificing the depth of the overall road. We're not at that 4 inches that we're asking for via our building requirements. So that's a sacrifice. We don't touch your driveway, but we're sacrificing the potential longevity of the road or stability of the road because it's less than 4 inches. There's a reason we've asked for 4.
Was there an issue with the sub base too, that it had to be checked?
No, I mean.
That was secondarily, that was
Yeah.
basically, since we were proposing to mill all asphalt off, just check the sublayer while we were down there and make sure that everything was okay with it. There's no
Didn't get
expected
approved
issues.
when-
Yeah, there's no expected issues with it.
Just because
It was just one of those, hey, if you're gonna take out 3.5 inches and get down to base, you could do a quick gut check on the
And
base.
and then there would also be a half-inch of that sub base taken out too.
To support the 4 inch.
support the 4 inch. But by all accounts, there's
Plenty.
extra underneath there is what everyone's been telling us.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, because you raised the road 4 feet.
Yeah.
But what happens if it's not? It's already been approved as a good suffix. Are you gonna go back and say, okay, now that we had to take out a 1/2 inch of sub base, now it doesn't meet it, so then the developer has to go back and redo the whole thing?
You can core that road if you want. You run a couple test holes in there if you have to. Again, I would not go and take all that off. There's other ways to fix it. I'm not here for the developer. I'm employed by the village. I'm just giving you my personal opinion. But to peel all that off and start over is gonna cause a lot of problems.
I think that was one of my first questions about if we take it to court. to see what's actually there.
Eric, what problems would that cause? If you get down in there with the mill, if you see them on the freeway, they're cutting stuff off. There's a difference in the size of the stone, and you start taking big chunks of it out. It's like if you do any woodwork and stuff, and you use a certain file or something, you take it off real nice, but you get into a big file and take it off, start taking big chunks out.
It's not just a clean cut at that
It's not a clean cut, right?
So now you're structurally impacting it potentially.
That's why you have your base coat, which is your binder coat, and you have your top coat, your finish coat, and you can take that off. That's how roads are designed. But I did the proof roll on that road, it came out excellent. The road does have a good aggregate base. I'm not worried about that. If you want to, court, but
Well, the other concern I would have, if we were to say, take out all of it and re-drop a full 4 inches, is we don't let them do it all in one crack again, right? So now they're stuck with a situation where we do the one lift of 2 inches and it sits for how long before we allow them to do the second lift of 2 inches? If you really wanna do this right, there's a reason that's done that way, right?
We got a street expert right there, you ask him what the difference is. Normally, it's just done for construction, if I remember.
I'm comfortable placing it the same day.
Okay.
I don't have any issue with.
I'm going off of what I know and based on what I've always been told.
Final,
is
that's
to
your
separate
ordinance.
that.
Our ordinance says that,
Separate
that
it.
construction damage,
Which that makes sense.
yeah.
So to me, if you're placing your base layer first, you are compacting it properly.
Mhm.
You are letting it cool to the proper temperature before you place your surface. And you are assuring that you get proper compaction that is necessary. I know there's,
So it's done right, you can do the drop, you can do the 4 inches all in one.
yes,
Okay.
we do it all the time.
Okay.
And I'm not saying we do it to get away with something.
Sure.
But it just, normal procedure.
Okay.
Mike, you said that you've been discussing things with Payne and Dolan, and they've made the suggestion. Are they, because they're making the suggestion, are they taking responsibility for this?
Apparently, they're worried about that because they haven't communicated with me lately, and their suggestion to fix it again was put a 1 inch on top with a lot of tack. It'll hold up fine. And I don't know what they talked about. They said something about milling by the driveways or milling into the concrete and then putting, so it butts up a little bit of a slant there. You wouldn't see it, and that's the last I heard from them. And I called them 6 times. I eventually hired an attorney, and this is apparently gonna turn, if you're gonna make them tear out the whole road, it's gonna turn into a big legal battle. They got a fix that they presented to me on the first communication, that they put 1 inch over the top and metal it out and blend it into the concrete. That's all I know right now. Payne and Dolan apparently is, in my opinion, realized that they didn't do it to specification. And they know I said it to them a number of times, this has to be done to road specs for the village.
What'd they give you whenever they were finished with it? Did they say it was 4 inches? Did they charge you for the 4 inches?
No, they said, they gave me a proposal of 3.5, I says, if this is road specification, fine. And they had the information, they had the road, they've done the other roads. They do a lot of roads around here, they're the experts, I'm not.
So the solution that they gave you is to lay another 1 inch on top,
Yes,
And then
which we're
mill.
looking for a 1/2 inch in reality.
they said 1 inch, a 1/2 inch wouldn't hold up as good as 1 inch. You go with 1 inch and you'd be safe.
But you're still milling by the drives, which only
They
gives
would
you
somehow
1/2.
mill by the drive and blend it in.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound
That's
like
all I
they
was
didn't,
told.
they didn't clarify whether or not that was on the asphalt side or the concrete side. So that would be an unknown.
I don't have that information right now, I'm just lucky I caught wind of this a little ahead of time so I could reach somebody out with a little bit of information I got for tonight. Otherwise, I couldn't have anything. Nobody officially ever reached out to me and let me know there was a problem. Nobody. That's how we treat our contractors.
What's your theory or your expertise around that suggestion of just dropping 1 inch? Is it structurally sound or?
I would like to see more information, what kind of mix they use.
Instead of finer mix.
It would have to be a finer mix because your aggregates are too small, so typically we use a 12.5 millimeter for your surface. 12.5 millimeters about 1/2 inch or so. So you can't have a thin layer basically finalize your agree if it's, you know, stick out or whatever you would say.
Look, we need to get something in writing from Payne and Dolan.
There's already, like, when you walk that roadway, there's already a lot of like divots and breaks and things like that. So if you put another inch on top of this, what happens to all of that?
Well, that would be covered, I'm not a proponent necessarily of 1 inch, just so that you're aware. Again, I'd have to see the spec and the special.
I mean, a lot of the issues are on the edge side of it. And you have issues along both sides. Some of it was marked by Naomi at one point or whatever, it's pretty much worn off now when you walk the area, but I mean, you can tell.
Sure.
I mean,
Isn't there some break-off points, like where it's actually like chipping along the
Oh
edges?
yeah, there's a lot of areas along, I mean, I walk it, you guys live it. There's a lot of issues along, and I worry about that, where if you put something on top of this versus making it right the right way, that you're gonna have, you know, if ice gets, water gets in there, freezes, whatnot, it's gonna expand underneath and cause issues on the top layer that you're putting on.
Well, I don't think most of the problem areas that you're discussing are construction related, gouges, ruts, things like that, where people were parked on the edge right on the edge of the roadway with heavy trucks, that kind of thing.
Our cars would do that, your divots, and we would park in them, yes.
So
it was not.
Part of that, too, can be because there was no shoulder for a while there.
Could that also be because there wasn't the year gap between the two?
Well, he's saying no.
Personally, I don't think so.
He's saying that should not be required, so.
Well, that'd be on the forthcoming one, but this
Well-
one would have been during construction traffic.
Right, so that if you waited 12 months and all the houses were built, maybe, there'd be less scarring from construction equipment on that surface for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, should we see what Payne and Dolan comes back with? Maybe the contractor can get them to replace the whole thing, or at least come back with the proposal they have, and we can revisit it.
I think we need to let the developer speak with Payne and Dolan and come back with a solution on it, a suggested
Absolutely.
way forward. My personal feeling right off the get is 1 inch, using fines and tailoring it up, thinning it out is just a cheap, quick fix.
I don't think it's gonna hold up, and I think it's already, there's issues with the road already that's there.
You said you were uncomfortable with just the 1 inch.
Without seeing the engineering support it, but yeah, regardless, like Tony said, that's Payne and Dolan's easiest way out of this, and of course, that's what they're gonna try to approach. You can't blame them for trying, but
Well, if the
ultimately,
developer can go back to them and say you didn't meet the specs and they gotta do it, that's fine. Go that route.
I think we need to make sure that the road that gets put in abuts the driveways the correct way,
Correct.
not that it's a half inch higher.
I think we need to find out from Payne and Dolan what avenue they're gonna take and come back to us with it.
Agreed.
Move on.
Agreed.
I mean, we're not gonna resolve it tonight because
No,
we have maybe possibly one road engineer here, the rest of us are not.
correct.
So I agree. I'd like to make a motion to table it. And let the developer come back with Payne and Dolan.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7D, review, discussion, and possible approval of the redistricting resolution 2021-04. You have all the information in your packet. This is just, do I need to read this resolution out? Basically, the census came out They redistricted everything, and everything we have still remains the same.
There's a resolution blessing that fact that it's no
Yes.
changes.
Well,
There are a few changes. If you look at the map, we gained a tiny little parcel of land at the very top town of Waukesha line, west of Highway 164. That was now included in our change.
Because we only had east of it, right? We never
The
had
last
that
10
top over
years.
here.
well, yeah,
We got that?
right.
The
Yeah,
cemetery,
that was annexed.
was put into section 3 instead of 1. But nobody lives there, so it doesn't matter.
Sure, nobody voted.
Nobody, yeah, nobody should be voting there. Right. So it was like ridiculously minor changes from it.
So,
But this hasn't been done in 10 years.
So I got a couple of questions. I'm looking at this, and like the description of the word 3 doesn't jive up with what I'm looking at on the map. And it doesn't jive up with any kind of explanation. It says south of Edgewood Avenue, west of 164, and south of Elm.
That's right. That's accurate.
Ward 3 is at the bottom.
Yeah.
All right, so that's what's added on. I got that, okay. I didn't see that was touching each other.
This little piece of good. And this was just changed to kind of make it all together.
Can I ask, just from my own knowledge, why do we have 3 wards? Is that something that we have to have, or?
So they're split evenly. The county did that. You have to have a certain, the statutes are in here if you really want to read them, but you have to have an equal-ish number of people in each ward, so they split them into 3 to make them.
So that came from the county?
actually, if I could say something in regards to that. We're broken into 3 wards because we have currently 6 trustees. 2 trustees technically, if we were to do it by districts, would be assigned from each of those districts.
They never told me that, but that makes sense.
So, and the village president then would be at large. If we were to do trustee districts like all the Madden districts.
But we currently do not.
Correct. All our board members are at large.
So then my final question is, it's the congressional districts and state assembly districts and so forth. Has that been resolved by the state, or are we just going off of what's, okay?
These are the ones that they have right now, and then we send this up there, and if anything changes, then they go
Come back
ahead.
then, okay. I kind of figured that's the way it was, I just wanted to make sure.
That's what they're working on.
Okay.
That's why they need this.
Gotcha.
Does Lauren need to read this, or can we approve it?
He said no.
Great. Motion to approve resolution 2021-04.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's mine. Item 7E, review, discussion, possible action regarding dump days in the dumpster.
Okay, this came up in Public Works, also came up in Finance. Just looking at where we're at with our dump days, our dumpsters, amount of people using it. This dumpster now is costing us, what, almost $400?
$335.
$335. If you take a look at your sheet in here, you can see the amount of people actually using the dump days. We do that every, the 3rd Saturday of every month. You can see like in April, we had 9, 4 in May, 6 in June, 8 in July, 9 in August, and 5 in September. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, we cut out one. What's to cut out the October one?
We cut out on the March and April, or March and October, because those were our low ones. Those figures do not show annual card holders, those are, resident pay.
And I don't think we have that many of them. Annuals, do we?
8 is what's listed right here.
Oh, okay. So,
That gives us total revenue of $730 off the dumpster. Does that cover our costs?
No,
No, we have never covered our costs.
none of those.
The problem is, right now, we're at 330, we're going to 345. Anyway, I don't know if it's not, we're not getting the message out or whatever, but for residents of this village, for $40, you get to dump 6 times a year. If you do it on a pay plan, it's $10 every time you come. If everybody's trying to get rid of a mattress or anything, some of those bulkier items, they're not exactly easiest to get rid of. So I think that's a way to, recover some of our costs is to have that charge that we do. I think that's a reasonable cost. I just don't think we're getting the word out, or there isn't enough use for it.
How full are the dumpsters?
Pardon me?
How full are the dumpsters?
Well, up until this year, they were extremely full. We take the backhoe and pound them down as best we can. Some of that was due to people having basements flooded in 19 and 20. We didn't have any rain this year, so there wasn't much of that. But at the same time, I have to watch out what that dumpster costs, what it costs to put a person there, and time on the machine. And I'm not looking to break even, but I am looking to put a major dent in the cost of that. And that's why we went with this program, because if we couldn't fund it some way, and if we couldn't charge, there was no way there was gonna be a dumpster.
And what was the cost?
It's 330 now, I think it's going to 335 or 345.
345.
Yeah.
So that's, every time we have to change the dumpster out, we would get that recurring
You're
charge.
looking at an annual cost of
What's that?
$57.
Every time we'd have to get a new 20-yard dumpster, that would be a recurring.
Well, that
charge.
dumpster's only there for the weekend, it's from a Thursday to a Thursday.
So each of these dump days costs us $345 plus wages of
Yes.
whomever is there.
Yes.
well, it's only really open Saturday morning.
Right, it's only open,
When it
but,
comes down to it.
right.
But, for many, many years, this was a free thing for the people. And just, I'm not sure how many years ago, we said, 4 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
That we said, let's start
Recouping at least a little bit.
a little bit. And part of the reason we want to have that dumpster is because prior to it, there was a lot of people dumping stuff along the roadways, like up at Dreamcatcher. And there was TVs and couches and mattresses and chairs and all kinds of stuff up there. So I think that's helped by having the dumpster. But, we've had some suggestions to, cut back a little bit more, maybe in the spring or in the fall or whatever. Or what we suggested, the final suggestion coming out of DPW was to get one of those A-frame signs and actually get it put up here on the corner saying, dump day this month or whatever is
Trying to advertise it.
coming up or whatever, get people to use. We did have another suggestion to open it up to, like Vernon or something like that, but nobody really felt that was a great idea. So, I guess we're looking for the board's idea of what they'd like to see us do. We kind of left it as just getting a sign up there saying this is happening. For $10, it's a great deal.
It is a great deal. I did some figuring, it's probably costing us about $2,500 a year for the dumpster and somebody to be there on Saturday morning.
And I'm still looking around, and in fact, there's a person in my neighborhood that has one of those green bags that you pick up for, what, $50 or $40 or whatever it
Yeah,
is?
and then you gotta pay like $250.
Yeah, so why not pay 10 and bring that down here? It's a great deal.
As Jeff mentioned, we've had people buy those dumpster bags at True Value for $39. Great value on the bag. That's not where they make their money. They make their money coming to pick it up. 150 sometimes, 130. And that dumpster's open 7 in the morning till 11. And it's every third Saturday. I just think it's a great thing. There's people there to help you get it into the loader, put it in the thing. The garbage is gone.
I guess we even talked about maybe you can bring your bag down here and we'll let you dump it for $50. That's a whole lot cheaper than pickup charge, or whatever.
It would only cost them $10 to dump the bag if you can get it in one load.
No, there's size restrictions on how much one load is.
For that $10?
I think we put up a simple sign on the cul-de-sac over here, 164. I think we'd get a lot more participation because people are there 7 to 11 this Saturday, dump day.
That's when we came up with the DPW.
Yeah, I think that advertising could go a long way, because people lose track of it, what day it is of the month and all that.
The caveat behind that is, once you need to call for another dumpster, it's an additional $345.
No, it's each time, bring it out for that Saturday and then they pick it back up.
Right,
So
but
every
we've
Saturday-
had
you
2
need 2 on
dumpsters
one
here
Saturday.
on some Saturdays,
Oh.
which is an additional
But
$345.
we cut that out. I mean, when the dumpster's full, it's full. Guess what? You gotta come next week and come around.
We do our best to take the backhoe, and anybody that's been down there during then, you come here on the following Thursday or Monday, when they pick that dumpster up and you see the front tires of the truck picking it up, lift off, you know there's a good load there. And we make it best, try to pound as much and we possibly can in that thing. So we haven't had to turn anybody away, but when I took over, there were 2 dumpsters. In 2010, there were 2 dumpsters every weekend. One of those dumpsters would go back empty, which to me was not a good deal. So we were able to bring it down to 1 dumpster.
So if somebody comes, pays the $10, they can make multiple loads for that day?
No, you get 1 yard. 1 yard in a bucket's a pretty good load.
So I'm just looking at primarily the May where you have 4 people, and in September where you have 5. And if that's all that's coming, you can cut down.
In September, there was 5 plus the 3 people that already had their cars,
Right.
so there were technically total 8.
So maybe bump it to every other month?
But we didn't get any squawk when we cut off the other
Second,
2,
yeah.
the March and the October.
Well, the problem in March was we numerous times we had snow during that time. Then I had to bring somebody else in, go on the road. October, when we had a 3rd week, it's usually fairly cold. Obviously, this year doesn't look like that, but there were 2 months there where we had very low customers coming in, and good business sense would tell you cut those 2 months. So it was the one at the beginning of the year and the one at the end.
So you said that you started charging for this like 4 or 5 years ago?
Well, I think we're in our 4th year now.
So that kind of brings, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so we went from charging nothing to get $730 this year. We're getting back a third of our cost. I guess I would recommend that we continue on with the dumpster program for another year with a little advertising thrown in and.
Well, that's where we like.
Again, with the sign up there, we'll.
If you get it to half even, I mean.
Yeah.
Well, this young lady here just told me she didn't know anything about the dumpster, so,
No, I do.
she does.
I think there's a lot of people like that. That's where we came up with, let's get a sign.
Well, I think it's in like it's mailed in the tax mailer.
Right.
But let's be honest, it's real small print and no one reads it.
Well, it's December, you can't use it until April anyway.
I would never remember it.
Forget about it, yeah.
Right.
It's also on the
You know,
website.
and what people don't understand also is, I went another step farther and became licensed as a electronics collector. So we take televisions and all the electronics that need to be recycled. We do that also. And we don't just do that on that Saturday. If they make a call to the village clerk, you can come up to the village clerk, pay your fee. We don't take them for free. TVs are 25, CRT monitors are 10. But if you come up and pay Elena or Laura, they'll give you a thing, you come down, we take it out, we bundle all the electronics up, and then we send it to the recycler that we're contracted with.
But you gotta be aware that electronics we charge for.
I think just putting information out there, share it on the Facebook page, put it on the sign in the cul-de-sac there.
Have we, I noticed, and this is on topic, but just a little bit to the side of it, I noticed that John's is raising prices overall with us. Have we went out and shopped? Have we done our diligence of looking at other entities to see if anything's cheaper?
I will tell you the fiasco that's going on right now with ADS, which is now called GFL Green for Life, and Waste Management is someplace you don't want to go. John's has been extremely easy to work with. I can call him and have him at the next meeting, then you'll have the president or the vice president of operations coming here. I will tell you the complaints are at the lowest of any garbage company in the area. It's like everything else right now. Everything is going up. It is what it is, but they're also gonna come in, I think I'll have them come in at the next meeting. Our stuff that goes down to the MRF processing facility in Milwaukee, we're not getting any revenue off of it. So what they're proposing is that they take that recyclables to their place in Franklin, or Franksville, I should say, and then we'd get something off it. Because I was just at the community, or the Waukesha County Public Works Forum, and we discussed this, and we used to get about $10,000 to $11,000 back each year from our recyclables. That fund is dried up, and looking in the future, they said maybe 2024 we'd start getting some type of fee back from them, to get profit back from it. But right now, it's not going to happen. But everything that's related to big equipment, garbage, drivers, everything else has gone up. If anybody wants to research it, go ahead. I've done it. I've listened to all the complaints. Yesterday, or on Tuesday, at the county, there was a lot of stuff going on with stuff that there are complaints. I think if you talk to the Village of Vernon, talk to Karen over there, she'll tell you the same thing.
It's even happened on the private side with the business. We had went out to get some due diligence quotes on changing. So we have one option. We looked at two others, advanced disposal and the normal players in that, and all of them have went up since previous years, the contracts. So, which is unfortunately, it's the state of the world right now. Costs are increasing, whether it's staffing or you name it. And so contracts and services are going as well.
Yeah, I think Johns does a really good job. I'm happy with him. But I don't think he would hurt, like you say, Tony, for our own knowledge to say, hey, we went out and seen what the other prices are.
Yeah, but don't we have a contract with Johns?
We do, but that doesn't mean we can't research it to when it comes up.
Agreed, but I mean, if it's 3 years out, there's not a whole lot of
What is
reason to
how
do it
long?
today.
We're getting off topic here.
Yeah.
We're still on garbage and dump.
Dump days, nothing about garbage pickup.
Dump day is Monday, not the Big Bend.
Yeah, it's more of a hydraulic spot scale than a driveway.
So is our action, no action on dump days and dumpster? Leave it as is and let her do some advertising and see if he can recoup a couple more bucks this year?
Yes.
That's the plan.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the agenda, item 8, closed session. I think you want all three of these together? Yep. Ready to read all of that? Probably. Going to closed session where per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session, specifically to discuss combined/shared services. 8B, going to closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1BE, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically village insurance. Item 8C, go into closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1BE, considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility in negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically working agreements for police department chief, fire department chief.
Motion to go into closed session for A, B, and C.
I will need a roll call vote. Trustee Audechell. Aye. Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Renner.
Aye.
Trustee Long.
Aye.
Trustee Kahn.
Aye.
Trustee Goodman.
Aye.
President Wysick, aye.
Who's staying and who's gotta leave?
Right now, for starters, everybody.
Everybody leaves?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Including me.
Then I'll slide on the way back in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's getting nice and warm in here.
Melting. We need to switch sides of the table.
Yes.
Kelly
have you noticed on our pavement around Lake Park, like every driveway has hydraulic and oil spots from John's
Yeah.
every week?
From the stops, yeah. Pretty nasty.